In today's video, we're going to take a look at making a living. In particular, making a living at teaching the Dharma, which is something that I'm trying to do. Coming right up. I'm Doug Smith of the Online Dharma Institute, that's onlinedharma.org. If you're new to the channel and interested in living a wiser and a kinder and a calmer life, consider subscribing to the channel. And if you haven't checked out my courses over on onlinedharma.org, please do. I've got them linked here above. I'll show you the couple of courses we have out right now. So give them a look and see what you think. So after releasing my most recent course, which is a course for sale, I got a question, I think a legitimate question from Igad, who asks about asking for money for the Dharma, for teaching the Dharma. And he refers to a particular passage from the Anguttara Nikaya, where the Buddha says to a particular person, a particular monastic, that one should not teach the Dharma with the thought that they would make money. And this is, I think, a very legitimate question when it comes to teaching the Dharma, and it's one that I have myself considered for a great deal of time. It's something that's actually kept me from sort of moving forward, if you like, with plans for something like the Online Dharma Institute. It's kept me back from that for quite a while because I've been thinking about this for a long period of time. And so here's my thinking on the matter. First of all, and perhaps most importantly, the Buddha saw nothing wrong with lay people making an honest living. He says this in a number of places in the suttas, that there's nothing wrong with basically legitimate wealth legitimately gained. That is to say, not cheating for your wealth, not hurting people for your wealth. If you're doing a legitimate job, honestly and openly, there's nothing wrong with being paid for, getting paid for it, getting a reasonable salary for it, let's say. Now, in the context of this sutta, which Igad mentioned, the Buddha is talking to a monastic, Udayi. And Udayi is giving a talk to a number of lay people. In fact, he says something like 1,000 lay people. So he's apparently giving a very talk that's well received, or at least that he's popular. And there we have to consider that the Buddha is talking to a monastic, or at least talking about a monastic. He wasn't actually talking to Udayi at the time, but the point remains that a monastic, of course, is not to get any recompense for their Dharma talks. That is to say, they're not going to be paid for them. They shouldn't be paid for them, and they shouldn't expect to be paid for them. A monastic is somebody who is basically a professional renunciant. They have renounced, in particular, money. They've renounced the use of money. They've renounced all of their possessions, except a very, very few, such as their robe and bowl. They've basically renounced everything. And so for a monastic to expect payment of any kind for a Dharma talk is of course the wrong attitude to have. And Udayi in particular in the early texts is somebody who comes up again and again in different contexts as somebody, as a monastic who seems to be pressing the boundaries in certain ways. Bhikkhu Bodhi, in one of his footnotes about Udayi, actually mentions that he might be a sort of a stock character of a kind, sort of like the guy who's always doing things wrong. So he may not even be a real person. But even if he was a real monastic, the point remains that monastics are not supposed to make any wealth off of their Dharma talks. In a sense, there's an implicit exchange that the Buddha set up in the early Sangha, that monastics gave Dharma talks, and the implicit exchange was that for these Dharma talks, or if they've enjoyed the Dharma talks, then the lay people in the audience should support the monastic by giving them food, by giving them shelter, clothing, medicine, that kind of thing, which are things that existed at the time and still exist now in cultures that support this kind of monasticism as a kind of a separate thing from money. Of course, money is much more fungible. Money is the sort of thing that you can pile up, and so monastics were not supposed to handle that. In the modern world, however, and particularly in the modern West, where we don't have this tradition of these monastic exchange, basically we have to figure something else out, at least for the present. That is, the existence of lay people in the modern West teaching the Dharma is something that is now pretty well established. And every layperson who teaches the Dharma for any period of time has to be able to make a living at it. And people will make a living in different ways. Some people will sell books, and that is one thing that I think we can all see around us is people selling books, writing books and then selling them. People will give Dharma courses. Some of them will give them online, as I'm doing. Other people will give them in person at particular Dharma centers, which you will generally have to pay for in one way or another. And, of course, people also give classes. That is to say, we have professors, teachers at universities, at institutions, who also give what is the equivalent of a Dharma class in the context of, say, a course on Buddhism or a course on Buddhist Dharma. And they also are paid for their work. They're paid for their work by the institution. Now, another popular option, of course, in the West has been fee by donation, which is called dana. Dana is the Pali word for generosity or for giving. And basically, in that case, somebody will perhaps go to a Dharma talk and then give something afterwards. If they have, supposedly, if they've gotten something out of the Dharma talk, they'll give some money. However, in the institutions that I'm familiar with, the use of dana, while it is encouraged, has been a problem because many of the Dharma teachers who have used this system have not been able to make a living at it. Because the dana that is given hasn't really been sufficient. And so, as a result, the institutions have had to use different methods. Either they've gone to a method of simply asking for a fee, a suggested fee, but nevertheless a fee, or they've done what really amounts to the same thing, which is to ask for suggested dana. That is to say, yes, it is a donation, but we suggest you give this amount for this particular talk. And that basically amounts to the same thing as having a fee. It's a suggested fee, but nevertheless, it's a fee. And of course, this doesn't work for things like books so well. It's hard to figure out a system of dana for getting books. Of course, it can be done if you really want to do it, but what's going to end up is that your book is going to have a much smaller range of potential buyers because you're not going to be able to use a platform so easily like Amazon or whatever that really allows people to buy books from anywhere very easily. And indeed, for the past year or more, I've been using the dana system, this idea of giving my talks for free on YouTube in exchange for dana, which is, in fact, Patreon. Patreon is a dana system. And Patreon is a beautifully designed website that allows me and other people who are in the arts or who are in music or who are writing blogs or just doing YouTube videos, whatever, to be able to get some small amount of money from dedicated and generous donors. And I am extremely thankful to my generous donors on Patreon because they've made a lot possible for me to expend in various ways on the channel and make it better in various ways, make things sound better and look better, and expanded the options for me on the channel. So that is a wonderful source. However, it's not sufficient to make a living off of, at least for most people, unless they are extremely large and popular. It's a difficult way to go for 99% of us. And as I say, even within the Buddhist community, it has been very difficult to make a dana system work in most cases. And that's why you'll see that many of the Dharma teachers that you know also use other systems. There's an important additional point to make here, though, about what the Buddha said with regard to Udai. He's saying that we shouldn't teach the Dharma with the idea in mind that we're going to get wealthy or that we're going to, make some money off of it. And I think that is indeed an important aspect to any making of a living anywhere. I think that, and this is why this video, although I'm talking about my own case here, particularly because of this question, and I think it's a legitimate question, the question is broader and pertains to any of us who's making a living. The reason to do a job, to do whatever job you're doing, is to do the job well, to help people. And in my own case, in the case I think of any legitimate Dharma teacher, the reason they're teaching is to impart the Dharma, to get this philosophy, this wonderful, deep, wise philosophy across to as many people as we can, as well as we can do. That is the point of the teaching. We're not teaching to get wealthy. And in fact, to be perfectly honest, being a Dharma teacher is not a way to get wealthy. I don't know that there's any Dharma teachers in the world who are wealthy. Maybe there are one or two who are teaching the Dharma and get wealthy. There certainly are people who teach spiritual things who get wealthy. Some of these, I think, are kind of shady on the sides, but people who legitimately teach the Dharma, I know of none. Maybe there's one or two out there, but very, very few. If you want to get wealthy, there are many, many better ways to do it than, I would say, an infinite number of better ways to do it than teaching the Dharma of early Buddhism. But this point is general, which is to say, no matter what job you're in, no matter what your job is, the way you approach your job, I think livelihood in general, the way that you should approach your job is to help people. That's the first way. And if you're helping people, and if you're getting whatever it is that you do across in an honest and forthright way, and you're doing your job diligently and well, then I think you can expect to make a living. You should expect to make a living. I think that everyone should expect a living wage. I think that that's the kind of thing that should be necessary for all of us if we're doing a legitimate job well. And so I think that the point that I'm making is quite general here, that I think all of us, when we go to our jobs, we don't go to our jobs in order to become wealthy. We go to our jobs in order to do the job well, with a feeling of that legitimately we should be making a reasonable wage to support us. Now, this leads to a related problem, which is that, of course, if people do get too greedy and too interested in making wealth and becoming wealthy, then indeed they can turn from doing a legitimate job well into doing something else, into cutting corners, into cheating, into making a product less well so that they make a better profit in the short term while screwing over their customers in the medium and longer term. I think we all know of cases like this. And in the general teaching of philosophy and wisdom matters, I think we all know of people who have sort of gone to the dark side in the same way, who say, we'll go on to, we'll change their message somewhat into teaching things like fortune telling, trying to tell the future for people, or selling snake oils of various kinds to people who are ill. And this, to me, is exactly what happens when people get too interested in wealth, is that they end up hurting people by teaching things that they know are going to gain wealth for them in the short term, while in the longer term doing things that are harmful. And of course, I don't believe I've ever done anything like that on this channel. I certainly don't think so. And I would hope and expect that you would pay attention to what I'm saying, both what I'm saying and what other people are saying, and call them out. Call me out if you think that I'm doing something that's incorrect, or that seems to in some way be pandering in some fashion, because that's, of course, not something that any of us should want to do. But as far as teaching the Dharma goes, in the Buddha's day, that was the job of the monastic. The monastic was really the teacher of the Dharma. There were very, very few lay teachers. There were some, and a few examples of lay people who would teach various aspects of the Dharma in the early texts, but very, very few, a handful. The vast majority of Dharma teachers in the Buddha's day would have been monastics. And nowadays, there are many capable monastics who are Dharma teachers and who teach for free. People like Bhikkhu Bodhi, people like Bhikkhu Sujato. And if that's the kind of thing that you're interested in, they have a plentiful amount of material out there. In the past, I have recommended both of them. Recommended Dharma talks by Bhikkhu Bodhi. There's many, many videos that he's done over the years on YouTube. Bhikkhu Sujato, of course, has all of his free translations out. Bhikkhu Bodhi has translations out as well that are fantastic. However, they come from Wisdom Publications, and Wisdom Publications, being a legitimate publisher, asks for money. You have to pay for Wisdom Publications, at least most of the time, their material, because they need money to be able to support the publication of books. So these are always kind of gray areas. The money doesn't go to Bhikkhu Bodhi, but it goes to somebody. So, there's all these kind of middle areas. But if that's, if what you're interested in is that kind of approach, there are some very capable monastics in the West that I would recommend certainly learning from. And those are two. There's many, many others that I'm sure you know. But I think, especially nowadays in the West, it is very important as well to have lay teachers. Certainly from a secular background such as myself, I find inspiration in lay teachers, in teachers who are trying to bring the Dharma into a lay life, into the lay context. And anybody who's trying to do that, who isn't independently wealthy and able to do these things just forever, is going to have to make a living at some point. And all of the lay teachers that you know of, and I won't list them here because I don't want to either leave anybody out or make you think that I'm picking on somebody incorrectly, but I'm sure that most of you can think of over a dozen lay teachers, both secular and more traditional, who teach in various ways the Dharma for money. Either they sell books, or they give talks, or courses, or retreats. These are the ways that people do make legitimate money from teaching, and in order to support themselves and indeed their families. That said, I have every intention to continue doing these free YouTube videos. I mean, these YouTube videos of mine, I know have been helpful to many, many people, and will continue. I will continue to make them. I'm not stopping the YouTube videos. So, in a sense, my new project with the Online Dharma Institute is supposed to be in addition to the YouTube videos. It should be seen, I think, as a method for me to be able to support myself in the teaching of the Dharma, and indeed support making the YouTube videos too for a longer period of time, and perhaps expand in various ways. We'll have to see what happens. And, of course, there's going to be people, some of you, who won't be satisfied with what I'm saying, and who simply don't believe that anyone should make a living teaching the Dharma. And that's fine. That's perfectly legitimate. That does follow, to an extent, what the Buddha taught in his early career. I don't think that he ever really talked about lay people teaching the Dharma in that respect. Maybe he did, but I don't know of any passage. But in any event, that would end us up in a place where basically the only teachers of the Dharma would be monastics and independently wealthy lay people, or lay people teaching an hour here and an hour there while they're doing a full-time job. That's the kind of place we would be in then, and some people would be fine with that, and then great. And as I say, there are plenty of capable monastics who are teaching. But if you want to help out me and this channel, check out my Patreon page. If you're interested in courses that I'm giving, check out my courses over on the Online Dharma Institute at onlinedharma.org. If you like them, let me know, and I hope we'll catch you on the next one of these videos. And meanwhile, all of you, be well.